Oh, hello. Before we talk to RFK Jr., letting you know that I am going to be in Erie, Pennsylvania at the Warner Theater June 28th, 2024, assuming I don't die in childbirth. Then I will be in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 6th, 2024, performing at the Mirage. It will be all new material about how a vampire tore through my body. We'll see. Not sure. I'm taking some time off to write some brand new material for y'all. And then after that, I'm going to be in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, July 17th, 2024 at the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival. Bert Kreischer will also be there. I also have a new special out. It's on of.tv/Whitney. Don't overthink it. TV/Whitney. You're going to see my brand new stand-up special, uncensored, free. Please enjoy. Bap, bap, bap. Oh, shalom. Here we go. Bap, bap, bap. It's a big day. Presidential hopeful Robert Kennedy Jr. is on the podcast. Look, I was going to do an open where I was like defensive. Like, I know you guys may have read that he did this and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do a big defensive open because that would imply that we don't have dope listeners of this podcast. Okay. You guys get it. You want to hear anti-establishment, anti-corruption, smart people talk. I don't think any of you believe in silencing presidential candidates, right? You're not a bunch of snitchy dorks. So I'm not going to do that. But if you are listening and you're like, RFK spread some vaccine misinformation. Okay. Even if that's true, let's say it's true. How do you know? This drives me nuts. Someone will be like, he said the vaccines caused the misinformation. And you're like, what? Did you have to step away from your microscope to make this point? Like, how do you know, Dale, who works in marketing at Dick's Sporting Goods? How would you know? Amber, who's never read a book in her life? Really? You're gonna shut down this conversation at a party? Taylor, who fell off a bird scooter last week, high on edibles. So you're the authority on vaccines? Like, when I ask people, like, about this, and they'll be like, no. I went on the New York Times. The New York Times told me. The gay blog? So, I mean, it's just, you trust the news site who on its Twitter feed will post the death toll of children in Gaza, then 2 tweets later will post about a new twist on avocado toast. Like, I'm not trying to come for the New York Times, but they did just hire a journalist who praised Hitler. I don't know. Okay. You're right. I'm not trying to come for the New York Times. All right. It's just that all of these news organizations are funded by the very corporations he criticizes. So it's all a little fishy if you ask me. It's like airport sushi level fishy. So I feel like, who cares what you like? Be honest. Just let's be honest with ourselves. No one knows anything. Okay. You know, this is my forever take on everything. And if you just listen to like sound bites, you would think that RFK says like this vaccines. No, he totally dimensionalized this argument. He did say that in 1989, vaccine schedule increased, but he also said there was a ton of other variables. Cell phones started, Roundup chemicals were introduced, GMOs. He says that it could be a bunch of variables in terms of the autism thing. Okay. 1989 was a year where a bunch of new stuff came into the mix, could have caused an increase, could have been anything. Maybe Bill Cosby's roofies got into the water supply. It could have been anything. He's not saying it's that. It's just, I know it's hard to listen to long conversations. It's hard to listen to anything they can't fit into a TikTok in a minute. I get it, but there's too many variables to know. And don't blame me. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. Blame your simulator, who has been called to dinner by his mom and who dropped the remote from the years 2021 to 2023. Hopefully he comes back to the couch soon and doesn't get distracted by the pop-up ad on the screen for a fleshlight. We might lose another couple years. And I'm just saying, if you disagree with RFK, you have to admit that it is cool that he's been going after corporations for like 40 years or something. He's the only person with the audacity to say that Big Pharma should not advertise on television, which I agree, it is a wild conflict of interest. But more importantly, their commercials suck. They make shitty commercials. Big pharma commercials, first of all, they're like 3 minutes long. And why am I watching a white woman in a vest in a canoe? Like, if your medication is going to make me want to be a canoe person, that is the number one problematic side effect of this pill. Like, hair loss, low libido, I can handle that. But if this medication makes me want to get into a canoe, I mean, every one of these commercials are insane. Like, according to Big Pharma, everyone who takes Valtrex ends up hysterically laughing on a hike. Like, why is everyone in every pharma ad just outside maniacally laughing? Like, get inside. Like, I just cured my rosacea. Now I got all this free time to go out and get Lyme disease and push my wife off a cliff. Just stay inside, everyone. Go back to studying the vaccine. Since everyone's a scientist now, go back to your vaccine research because Twitter needs you. Anyway, I don't normally weigh in on politics, and don't panic. I'm not going to weigh in on politics on the podcast with RFK Jr. We kind of talk about, it doesn't get too into the weeds, but I do think it is safe to say that the two-party system is broken. Like, I mean, a qualm that people have with him right now is they'll be like, he's going to take votes from Democrats and Republicans. Is that bad? Maybe they need some competition. Maybe they need to step up. Maybe a third-party person will make them have to actually run candidates who aren't 200 years old. RFK is going to steal votes. Okay, like, you mean some voters aren't going to have to choose the least worst? Also, why do they even call it a Republican Party or Democratic Party? There's not a lot to celebrate right now. They should call it like the Democratic cult and the Republican hoedown, debutante. I don't know. I don't understand why our only options for presidents are either the tannest people on earth or the palest people on earth. All the Republican candidates, they look like shiny Hannibal Lecter, and the Democrats all look like vegans who have scurvy. Can anyone just be in the middle? I guess I'm a middle person now. I'm in the middle, and that's not a cop-out. It's not fun to be in the middle, okay? It's like being the middle person and a human centipede. Either way, it sucks shit. Also, when it comes to, like, the left and the right, like, all of the right-wing politicians and left-wing politicians are friends, right? Like, that's the thing no one talks about, is that the politicians on both sides, they live in the same places. They have vacation homes in the same places. They're all in the Hamptons or in Connecticut. Like, a huge Democratic politician lives right next door to a huge Republican. They share a gardener that they both pay $3 an hour. They get each other's Amazon packages. Like, Nancy Pelosi's like, hey, Donald, I got your Sally Hansen self-tanner again. Do you want me to just throw it over? You know what? Let me text Bezos right now to tell us to stop mixing up our packages, that silly goose. And if you have the formaldehyde I ordered, can you let me know? Because I need to reapply it soon. Don't want to start disintegrating before this hot stock tip comes in. P.S. Hey, make sure to invest in Hewlett Packard. Trust me. They just made a 3D printer that prints babies. They loan each other boats when they need to kill the spouse. They share a Skippy for their boats. They'll be like, are you using our Skippy this weekend, or can I get the Skippy? I'm just saying. They're all friends, okay? But they all, right and left, seem to be mad at Robert Kennedy Jr., which makes me think he's doing something right. Is that a psycho thing to think? I just feel like most Americans have to choose the least worst candidate now. And also, politics is like, it's just become sports. It's like sports for dorks at this point. It's like us versus them. Like, it's like if you're a Jets fan and you meet a Patriots fan, automatically you're mad at them. It's like with the left and the right. It's like, he's a Republican. Is that really how you define a person, by their political party? I define people in a way that actually dimensionalizes them, not based on whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, based on whether they have a Samsung or an iPhone. I don't really care how you vote. As long as we have the same color bubble, we're cool. So just for context, he did come into my house and he actually said something that no one's ever said to me that's come to my house. He was like, how come you don't have any family photos anywhere?
He's like, you don't live here, do you?
Why? He was like, is this like a stage house? It's like, no, this is my house. He's like, there's no family photos. Is that not the saddest thing you've ever heard in your life? I mean, I didn't know what to say. I was speechless. I was like, No, but we have I have like pots on shelves. Like, what goes to family photos? Like, what is love? Like, what is a family? Like, I was at a loss. Like, where do family photos go? I feel like they go to piano. I don't have a piano. Like, should I have photos of? I mean, everyone's either dead or suing me. You know what I mean? Should I frame lawsuit letter? Should I frame? Should I? I guess I could have my mom's urn out. Yeah. I would match all the other pots. He seemed really bummed. He seemed kind of like he's like, "Are you okay?" Like he's like, "This is the loneliest house I've ever seen." Is basically what he.
I would imagine anyone who grew up a Kennedy is just overwhelmed with family photos on the wall.
I bet. Yeah, we don't do a lot of photo evidence in our family. We don't want anyone to know that we cross paths. We don't want any proof. This is all like evidence in future lawsuits. We don't do a lot of pictures. But yeah, I mean, I guess I never thought about that until now. It was the first thing he noticed.
Well, the first thing he wanted to talk to you about.
I know. He's like, "Why don't you have any family photos?" I was like, "Because then it's going to take up all the space and I can't have the dog figurines and the David Bowie figurine and where are the horse statues going to go?" This is cluttered up with a bunch of people that love me.
You're like, what 13-year-old girl do you know that has family photos all over their room?
It was kind of heartbreaking. Yeah, I guess he also has like 100 cousins.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, their family and their family history is that's their whole thing is the photos that reinforce the dynasty.
My family's not big on admitting we know each other or cavort in any capacity. We don't frame photos, we frame each other. Oh gosh. I felt so bad for him, like that he had to point it, like he was just like, should I tell her? He was totally just like flabbergasted. I've never seen someone have that kind of reaction to my house before. He was like trying to say like, "Are you okay?" But he was just like, "Where are the family photos?" All right. Does anyone want to send me some photo? You know what? I could just buy frames and just leave. You know, it always comes with a photo of someone.
They seem like nice people.
Yeah, like it's like a black and white photo. I'll just like get some photos from like the Hallmark store, or what's it called? The precious moments,
tender moments.
I don't even know where to buy.
Aaron Brothers.
I don't even know where to buy photo frames to put photos in. But so, if you would like to DM me some photos of your family and Photoshop me in, I'd really appreciate it. So we don't have to weird anyone else out, because I am in the market for a family, so that I can put photos around my house so I don't have to see the sadness on someone else. I mean, it did bum him out. I can't stop thinking about it. Okay, here he is, RFK. This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Why? Because, well, I host it. I can't say enough good things about what therapy has done for me in my life. I literally wrote a book about it, okay? I had a condition called codependence where I used to waste a lot of my time doing things out of obligation. I felt guilty saying no to people. I confused love and pity. I felt guilt when I stood up for myself. I was scared of authority figures. I tried to make other people, like me instead of just focusing on liking myself. In short, I was a wreck, folks. I also put other people's needs before my own. How do you think I got pregnant? I'm just kidding. I was always taking care of everybody else, but not taking care of myself. I wasn't eating well. I was texting and driving because I just had to text back that friend who was breaking up with her married boyfriend for the 4th time. It was all just nonsense, I tell you. Therapy helped me realize that I got these behaviors honestly. Therapy helped me rewire my brain, helped me make better decisions. And now I have 6 comedy specials and a kid on the way. You too can have it all, folks. Holidays are coming up, and that is really when things get a little bit wobbly, even if you have done a lot of therapy. Grief comes up, pressure to socialize, give gifts to people that I don't even like, perfectionism around the tree. But look, I am still at the point where I let people come over to help decorate the tree, and as soon as they leave, I redo the whole thing. That will never change. That is just who I am. No amount of therapy is going to make me let people do a sloppy ass tree. But I am going to double down on therapy this holiday season as a gift to the people I love. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Whitney today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Whitney.
I do think this house is unusual because you don't live here, right?
I live here.
Oh, you do?
Yes, sir.
There's no like personal pictures or photos or
of the house, you mean?
You.
In the house.
Yeah. Do you have a family or?
I actually didn't even put that together. You know, that is really sad.
It seems like a show house.
It does seem staged, doesn't it?
Like a stage that. Yeah,
it's so. I mean, we're on opposite.
Do you want me to come and help you?
You have 1,000 photos, I bet, on every piano in your house.
Well, I have a store because Cheryl doesn't like clutter, and although we have some big walls in our house, we don't have like I have framed signatures from all the presidents in different frames. And, stuff like that, my family stuff, hundreds and hundreds of photos. But almost none of it is up at my house because Cheryl does not like clutter.
I do have a complicated relationship with my family, lost both parents relatively recently. But yeah, I think I tried to do sanctuary vibe in there, and then this is my Pee-wee's Funhouse chaos.
Yeah, this room looks nice.
It's always good to have I feel like one room to just put all your clutter in. It's just the clutter room. But yeah, no, you really did just make me take a good hard look at myself on that. But because I know you have a heart out, and I do not want to waste your time, but just want to start with saying, you've been doing a lot of podcasts. I'm sorry about these comedians. I apologize.
I had Tim Dillon and Theo. Mm-hmm. I know you're buddies with him.
Good buddies.
Yeah, and Bobby Lee.
Bobby Lee, which, by the way, I listened to it last night just to be like, let me make sure I'm not asking any of the same questions.
Yeah, that's not a good thing to listen to.
And then I come up at the end. He's like, yeah, I'm friends with Whitney Cummings. We show each other our genital. I was like, wait, hold on. That has never happened, first of all. Can I hire you to sue him for me? That is blasphemy, and I will not participate.
Oh, I can't believe we went to the same elementary school.
So weird.
But of course, decades apart.
In Georgetown, I went to Holy Trinity, Our Lady of Victory, and then graduated from St. Andrews.
I went to Our Lady of Victory. Wouldn't it be weird if some of the teachers that I had... Miss Cooligan, was she still there?
Oh, I don't think so. But that would be such a trip.
Yeah. I was at that point in my life, I was really, I would say, non-compass mentis. I think I was so ADHD that I could not even understand what, it just sounded like audible chaos coming out of the teacher's mouths. And I would sit there and you could look at the MacArthur Reservoir and there were black vultures and turkey vultures and herring gulls and all of these animals that I was interested in. And I would just sit there all day and watch those birds. And I think I was the lowest person in my class until I started taking drugs. And I think I was self-medicating. Mm-hmm. And then I went to the top of my class. In 9th grade, I started, self-medicating. And I went, and suddenly I could sit still and I could concentrate with heroin.
Okay, nice.
Nice, right?
Yeah, I was just listening to, there's a Harvard scientist who talks about microdosing heroin and it really helps with his focus.
That's not a good idea.
No, for sure not.
It also doesn't last, the microdose part. It allowed me to focus. It calmed down my mind and I could read for the first time. And then I just became a, voracious reader. But before that, I had like a squirrel's, in my head.
And it's fascinating because I'm almost 8 months pregnant now. And sorry, I was moving a little slow this morning trying to get you in.
Well, you look very svelte.
And so I don't want to ask you any questions that you've been asked a million times. Can I start on a little bit of a positive note? Like, can I just say, what is America doing well right now? Long beat.
Well, I mean, there are certain areas that I think we still are kind of world leader on. We probably build the best aircraft in the world. I think we still do innovation better than anybody else. You know, Silicon Valley and Boston and these innovation centers where you have this extraordinary, very, very Americanized entrepreneurial ferment. So we're on the cutting edge. We don't build the microchips, but we design them, and we do all of that kind of, innovation is done in America. And then, there's a lot of really interesting things, Whitney, happening kind of on the margins that are directly related to the freedom of this country. One of those is integrative medicine and functional medicine. There's just this explosion of innovation and knowledge. And again, it's not coming from the established institutions. It's coming from, people, very smart people who have chosen to have been relegated to the margins and are figuring out ways to heal disease and to avoid disease and to build your immune system and, to restore health. The same thing is happening in regenerative agriculture. And, you're seeing these, again, it's not coming from the centralized institutions, which are all broken. It's coming from individuals operating outside of the system. And this is something you won't see in China because of the way that, they don't have that kind of freedom. So people don't feel like they have permission to think for themselves and to do something unusual and to break down barriers. And I think we still have that in this country. And I think ultimately that's going to be the key to our recovery as a nation and as a moral center in the world.
I've seen Shark Tank. I know all about this.
Exactly. Mark Cuban.
I see a lot of people sort of online and memes talking about sort of the Constitution and, it was written at a time where things were different and da da da. If you could magically just wave a wand and add or amend an amendment or change the Constitution, what would you do?
I guess I'd put a little addendum on every amendment saying there's no pandemic exception. There's no exceptions. I think we saw that. I mean, ultimately, the Constitution only works if people believe in it, and see it as a moral milestone, a moral document. And I think the shocking thing during the pandemic was how people were willing to just all of the amendments basically came under attack. The First Amendment, we saw censorship for the first time, government ordained censorship. We then saw freedom of worship. We saw every church in the country closed for a year.
And also something that I just must say, self-censorship, I think also counts. Just this fear of if I say something.
Oh yeah, well that happened too. That's not actionable.
Yes, right.
It's actionable when the White House is telling Twitter, you censor Robert Kennedy, or you censor Dr. McCulloch, or you censor Dr. Corey, or we're going to pull your Section 230 immunity and destroy your company, which is exactly what happened. And anybody who doubts that description should go look at Judge Doughty's decision, 155-page decision of my case is now in the front of the U.S. Supreme Court. It's called Missouri versus Biden and Kennedy versus Biden. They're consolidated. Oh, that's never happened before. And then they went after freedom of religion. They closed all the churches, no scientific citation, no public hearings, no environmental impacts. I mean, all of the kind of the indicia of democracy were simply abandoned. And then they went after the third part of the First Amendment, which is freedom of assembly. They mandated social distancing, and they began punishing people who were demonstrating, et cetera. And they went after Fifth Amendment property rights. They shut down every business in our country, 3.3 million businesses, with no due process, no just compensation. They went after jury trials. Seventh Amendment guarantees jury trial in any matter to any citizen in the United States cannot be denied the right of a jury of a trial before the jury of his peers in cases or controversies exceeding $25. That's what the amendment says. That's it. There's no pandemic exception. And yet, anybody who is involved in a countermeasure, they got rid of jury trials if they, no matter how negligent they are, no matter how badly injured you are, no matter how reckless their behavior, no matter how toxic the ingredients or shoddy their testing, you can't sue them. Mm. And and then they got rid of the Fourth Amendment prohibitions against warrantless searches and seizures. You have to give your medical information before you go into a building, a public building or whatever. That's never happened before. So and by the way, the framers of the Constitution knew all about epidemics. Mm. There were two epidemics during the American Revolution. One of them, a malaria epidemic that decimated the armies of Virginia. And there was a smallpox epidemic that absolutely froze the Army of New England at a very critical time. In fact, at that time, Benedict Arnold conquered Montreal. So he made it into the inner city. He took the city. We owned it for a day. But he couldn't hold it because his troop strength was so depleted by smallpox. Wow. He had to retreat out of the city. Wow. And otherwise, Canada today would be part of the United States. And all the framers knew that.
Wow.
So, and between the end of the revolution and the ratification of the Bill of Rights, there were epidemics in every city. There were smallpox, cholera, malaria epidemics, yellow fever that killed tens of thousands of people. Almost everybody who was part of the Constitutional Convention, their lives and their families were touched by those epidemics.
But they just didn't put it in writing.
And yet they didn't say, they didn't put an epidemic exception next to, on anything. They didn't say these amendments only are good unless there's an epidemic.
Unless Bill Gates predicted an epidemic.
Yeah, exactly.
This makes me so angry when I hear about this. And then I go, okay, I got to vote. I just got to inform myself. Something I really bump on is the fact that our election day is not a holiday. Is that something that you think, who does it serve? Why does it serve? Sorry to be tinfoil hat guy. I just go, oh, great. Poor people can't vote. People that don't have cars can't vote. People that have jobs and can't afford babysitters can't vote. Should voting be a national holiday?
I would say that. I haven't thought about it, but I would say that's a good idea, of course.
It's wild to me that it's not, and it seems like it serves people who can afford to take the day off, or people that,
Yeah. No, it's a good point.
Basically more resources. What about age limits on the Supreme Court? Am I ageist?
I'm not for age limits. I think, you might have competency tests or something like that, but age limits, because I know people who are 90 years old and who have cognitive capacity and the fluidity and lucidity of people who are in their 50s. So it's really to me, it's more, that's a really individualized.
Yeah,
and you can't just say, people who try to impose age limits. So there's a lot of seniors in this country who vote, and they're offended by it because a lot of them are like, I'm completely okay. Why are you going to make a law against me?
Right? Totally.
So it's like your driver's license. When you get to an age, you have to start getting tested.
Yeah, it's more like it's more, I work in the, rescuing exotic animal trafficking stuff. And there's something falled founder syndrome. This God complex.
Yeah, I know what that is.
Where sort of, the longer you've been in power, sort of the power corrupts your brain over long periods of time. It's not the age itself. It's kind of more sort of the power at the end of the day. There was a great article in The Atlantic about what power does to the brain. Can I ask you real quick, just in terms of, you've been so open about your sobriety and so many people are so grateful for that. As I said, I'm in a 12-step program, and in our 12-step programs, we do something called a 10th step every night, where we go do our inventory of what we're resentful for, maybe where we owe an apology if it's due, where we need to forgive somebody. What's coming up in your 10th step these days in terms of resentments that you might need to turn over?
I'm pretty good about not hanging on to resentments.
You'd have to be to.
Yeah, I learned that really on it. There's two ways that most people process conflict and anger. And one of those ways is to internalize it and to turn it into a resentment. And that is like swallowing poison and hoping someone else will die. It's corrosive. And the other way is to externalize it and turn it into anger or rage, which then spreads it like like ripples all across the globe. You get angry, you kick the dog bites somebody else. You get angry at your wife, she bitches at somebody at work, and it ripples across the globe. So neither of those is a good way to do it. And I think the technique for handling anger has to be learned by most people, that it doesn't come across. It's counterintuitive, which is that you go to the source of your anger and then you explain how you feel about it, without pointing the finger, without using the word. I tell people, don't use the word you. Don't say you did this to me. Just say that encounter we had, here's how I processed it. My feelings were hurt from it or something, but without telling that person you did this to me.
Yep.
So you say what you mean without saying it mean. And, and it's all technique and it's something that you have to learn. But I have learned that over, 40 years and of, practicing those. So I clear up my my anger, any instance of that very, very quickly. And I won't go to sleep at night holding resentment against somebody, or when I sometimes in the middle of the night I'll have like almost like a dream state, or I wake up in the middle of the night and I go into this kind of contemplative twilight zone. When you're trying to get back to sleep, and I feel like God talks to me in those moments, and that during those moments I'll think of something. Oh, you said this to this guy today, and you were joking, but he probably took it, probably hurt him. So as soon as I figure that out, I make a call and I get rid of it. I neutralize it, because I don't want to walk around with any of that stuff.
Could have handled that better. Hope that did. Yeah, I mean, it is such a miracle.
It's a miracle too, because another technique is to pray for somebody that that injures you. And I learned this really on in dealing with road rage. Oh, that if somebody gives you a finger on the road, I mean, I remember a time when I turned my car around and chased a guy for 12 miles from White Plains to Somers, or Salem exit
with no plan, no real plan.
No, but then I got into physical conflict with him on the top of the exit ramp when he got off. Then I go home and I'm driving home and I'm late for the appointments that I was supposed to do that day. And I have this rage in my head, and the guy is living in my head rent free. And that stranger now controls the rest of my day, and, controls my happiness and my, capacity to maximize my impact on the world and my feeling of well-being and all that. And so somebody told me, when somebody does that to you on the highway, or they cut you off, or they do something, to immediately just say a prayer for them. And it was like a miracle, because it just went away. And I'm sitting there saying, that's like a drug. You just do it and it goes away. And now you don't have to do anything. Now, I'm in control of my own life. I'm not handing control over to a total stranger. So that really helped me. And then in larger things, I had somebody who was a close friend of mine a couple of years ago who I helped this person in ways that were, I literally spent a year of my life doing something for this person that got him out of prison. And that person did something to me that was, that was not good. And I have not spent 1 minute feeling resentful or anger against I have a right to. I haven't, because I've been able to manage I manage my anger in that way. And I'm not, I feel very loving towards them and very forgiving. And And I every day I spend a little time praying that good things happen to him. And what that does for me is it makes it that I never walk around with that bitterness inside of me.
Because whatever he did was ultimately self-harm because he lost you.
Whatever it was, the only way it can really hurt me is if I allow it to.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just send good energy toward him, then then it has no impact on me. And it's really been, to me, it's kind of like a hidden accomplishment for me because I was able to process this whole event without ever experiencing resentment or anger.
Something that, sounds like a platitude, but they really helped me in program to simplify the complicated brain of we forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because we deserve peace.
Yeah. So that's really good. You just said what I said in 10 minutes. I should have just said that. Can I write that down?
Now, I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but I have recently become a fashion icon. I don't know. I've decided to become the Jackie O of comedy and pair my vintage gas station horse shirts with some very chic basics. I feel like a lot of brands I used to like for simple basics went insane and started bedazzling everything and losing their minds. So now I really only shop at flea markets or Quince because Quince has these I can't even tell you, these like amazingly classic styles that make you seem like you have way more class than you actually do. And suddenly I feel like I'm Shiv from Succession. I'm in a creamy taupe these days. I'm dabbling with a rustic brown, a steal your man, heather gray. Try and stop me. You can't. Quince offers a range of high-quality items with prices within reach, like 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50, washable silk tops. Washable silk, you heard that, not high maintenance. You got to take it to the lady to wash for you. Silk tops, washable silk tops, dresses, cotton sweaters, and cozy pants. You know me, I also love gift giving. It's actually like a mental problem, but it can really add up. That's why this holiday season I'm shopping at Quince. Quince is my go-to place for luxury essentials and affordable prices for everyone on my list. Me particularly, I'm getting everybody luggage. Travel stuff. They have the cutest like fanny packs and like roller bags. Best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands, so you're not getting conned or scammed by partnering directly with top factories. Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes on the savings to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. You're not going to get your item and then have a bunch of children's sweat and blood on it. I love this about Quince. I got this, it's so cute. It's an eggshell white cashmere button-down sweater I've been pairing with this sundress that I had to just pull out of the washing thing because I've been wearing it forever. Look at how cute this brown is. This sundress, okay, I'm a total 90s dream girl all of a sudden. Look at this. I'm Winona Ryder in Reality Bites meets Liv Tyler in Empire Records. In my vanilla milkshake colored sweater that is bringing all the boys to the yard. And by yard, I mean YouTube comments section being like, wait, is Whitney my dream girl? And the answer is yes, I actually am. I'm classy, yet not intimidating. I'm fashionable, yet not desperate because I was smart enough to shop at Quince. Get affordable luxury for everyone on your list with Quince. Go to quince.com/Whitney for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, Quince. Here's the label. Look how cute on my Quince dress. Quince, look how adorable. Quince.com/Whitney to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Sorry about the burping, but I'm classy, remember, because I wear beautiful brown tones. Quince.com/Whitney. Selling a little or selling a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business, from the launch your online shop stage to the first real life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify is where you are going to go grow. Shopify is where to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. So what I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify is a total game changer because the interface is so easy. Even an idiot like me could figure it out. Y'all know that I have a book that I wrote. It's easy not only to sell the book, but also to update buyers with information about the book being late because, I don't know, some nightmare happens, and then I can send a message thanking them. It also tells me who bought the book and where, so I can start seeing patterns and change the way that I market. So it's like if a bunch of people are buying in Toledo this book, I go like, I should maybe go on tour in Toledo because all these people bought my book. There's so much feedback. There's such a way to take your business to the next level. It's genius. I love it. I don't know why you'd ever use anything else for something as important as your business. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, three of my favorite brands, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Whitney, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Whitney now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Whitney. Love you. When I first started going into the rooms, I was like, oh, God, I don't need this. These people are depressed. I'm too busy for that. Whatever, my ego really trying to find ways that I didn't need to be there. Oh, I already get that. Da, da. But then I heard one thing said by a brilliant guy still in my life. He got up and he said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is the war is over. The bad news is you lost. And it's exactly what I needed to hear, exactly the way I needed to hear it, perfectly succinct. And it just made me surrender.
Yeah.
I was fighting the God stuff. I was fighting the steps. I'm too busy for this. Was there anything that just was perfectly said that made things click for you?
I mean, I said this the other day in an interview that one of the things that really helped me was a line from Isaiah that said, "Be still and know that I am God." Which, because my life was all activity and no progress. I was ambitious and I was energetic and I put, huge energy into my life. And, I described myself as being a giant truck stuck in a ditch with the wheels spinning and the, headers smoking and the pipes, flames coming out of the pipe and roaring noise and going nowhere, and then I learned to be still, that I don't have to fix everything. That I don't have to reach outside of myself to fix things that are, going wrong inside of me, that are, the parts of me that are, not feeling good right now. I don't have to go out and fix that. I can just be still, and that it will pass like a storm cloud, like lying on a hill and watching dark cloud come and a white cloud or whatever. And that if I can sit still with that stuff, that God does the hard work and be peaceful, be filled with peace
and a faith
assurance
that it's going to be handled. It's not my job. It's when people struggle with the God thing.
And it makes me a lot more efficient and effective as a human being, being able to be still. And, there's a story about Abraham Lincoln, who was asked about how he would cut down. He was the rail splitter, so he was, handy with an axe. And he was asked about what he would do if he had 5 hours to cut down a giant oak tree. And he said he'd spend 4 hours sharpening the axe. And to me, that's a metaphor for, being in a good spiritual condition. If I'm in a good spiritual state, I am much more effective as a human being. It not only takes that knot out of my stomach of anxiety that I was born with and that empty hole inside of myself that I was trying to fill with drugs and sex and risky extreme behavior and all that. It makes me peaceful inside, but also it somehow alters the universe so that my luck changes. The lights turn green, the parking place is open, and People call when they're supposed to. I see all these little synchronicities happening around me, these little coincidences and weird little miracles that feel like God reaching in and touching me and saying, I got you. So it makes me
such a magic trick. It's such a magic trick. It's like, when I'm working with people that are sponsees that the God thing, I don't believe in God. It's like, okay, you don't have to believe in God yet. Just believing in God, let's just start with the fact it just means you're not God. Let's just start that you're not. And you just see them go, oh, thank God. Like I don't have to be in control of everything. I can just be in the passenger seat and like let the good things come. And the things that don't come aren't for you. It's like the rejection's God's protection. And when you start seeing that and looking at it that way, there's nothing bad can ever happen to you because you can just sublimate it into something positive or
and that's the trick is that the trick that God has is taking chaos and and bringing order out of it. And each one of us is little, our magical ability is to do that in life, to try to whatever we encounter, whatever bad thing we encounter, to try to make something good out of it, to process in the way that you can be of use to other people, that you can, that you know how to console people, that you know what to say, that you gain wisdom from it. The word wisdom means the knowledge of God's will. And it means that you have an instinctive knowledge about what is right and what's wrong, and how to turn, bad things into something good for somebody else.
And looking at it as practice. So if you didn't get what you wanted, practicing patience. You didn't get, this is uncomfortable. Today's my opportunity to practice tolerating discomfort. Like you can sort of step 3, you spin everything into something that benefits you.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate magic trick. You mentioned, the concept of getting internal needs met with external things. I feel like as, someone that is, has so much alcoholism and addiction in my family, and I look ahead and I look at all these new addictions popping up, which is just the whack-a-mole, with social media, with self-righteous indignation on Twitter. When people go on Twitter and they're like, everyone's so divided. It's like, yeah, I mean, there was a civil war at one point in this. We've been divided before, maybe we just see it more than ever. Who knows? But when I see negativity online, I just see people that are addicted to self-righteous indignation, addicted to social media. What is, if any, the government's role in addiction recovery? You've talked about it a little bit, but it's something that, I worry Big Pharma is just going to come in and be like, we have the addiction pill. We've got they're already kind of doing it. But is it?
Yeah, that's what they're already doing. They've turned a lot of the rehab industry, that has become predatory because of that, because it's been captured by pharma, and you go in to try to get sober, and they put you on, Prozac or SSRIs or benzos, and it just becomes part of a profit center for the.
There's an alcohol pill that's coming out soon that makes you puke if you drink. It's called Jaeger.
It's called tequila.
Yeah. Just eat the worm. I'm just always so curious because it seems like something that, addicts to me are always the most effective people on the planet, the smartest, most big-hearted people on the planet when they're sober. But I just see more and more addictive substances, and behaviors.
Yeah, I get it. Because my brain is like a formulation pharmacy. I can turn anything into a drug. And all the things you say, substances or coffee or Red Bull or emotional stuff like pride, anger, lust, gluttony, avarice,
adrenaline,
adrenaline.
Gambling. I mean, because gambling, I look at, Instagram and I go, these are just slot. This is a slot machine. It's the same thing. But I also think that there's such a thing as positive addictions, work and, that kind of thing, so but the government getting involved, is that overstepping or am I?
No, what my kind of, I guess you'd call it a moonshot program or the Peace Corps program. I'm going to start these healing centers all across the country in rural areas.
Amazing.
Right now, the big industry in rural areas in this country, the only industry in a lot of the rural areas is prisons. And we had 106,000 people die of overdoses, mainly fentanyl last year. That's twice what the number of kids that died in the 20 years in the Vietnam War. So we have 2 Vietnam Wars a year that are now happening in our country because of addiction. Plus, you've got all the suicides and all the other depression and this disintegration, the mental disintegration. I think there's 120,000 doses every year of SSRIs, and another 120,000 of Adderall. But people shouldn't, lose hope. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start these, work with a nonprofit community to start these farms, essentially with organic farms, where people grow healthy food. They live, and it's based upon something that I saw. A relative of mine went to a place in Italy called San Padrignanos, which is a community where they reparent you and teach you how to be part of a community.
Awesome.
And there's 2,000 kids who live there. It's free, completely free.
Awesome.
You just have to make a long-term commitment. You have to commit to 4 years. It's like college.
Great.
There's no cell phones. There's no screens.
Ooh.
You actually have to talk to other people, and then everybody is taught a skill. So they have a furniture factory. They have a wallpaper factory. They have one of the greatest bakeries in Tuscany. They have world famous bread. They have a vineyard that makes some of the finest wine in Italy. They have dog kennels where people can board their dogs and you learn how to take them. And they have the same thing for horses, and all these other, and people come out. They make purses, handmade purses for Dela Valle, for Prada, for Gucci, and they make money from selling this stuff. It pays for half of their budget. And these kids, learn how to live in communities for the first time, and they come out completely recovered. So
cool.
I'm going to start these all over the country, and we're seeing that what we're seeing in this country, the disintegration of any sense of community
and any sense of pride. People say on Instagram, we self-love and da-da. In order to build self-esteem, you have to engage in esteemable actions.
Yeah.
Build something. I made this. I built this. I trained this dog.
And I went to work and I put in a full day's work and I showed up on time.
Too easy. That's it. Right. Integrity, building integrity.
Right. I told the truth when it was hard and all of that stuff that kids aren't learning today. And so, I really want to try to restore this sense of community in our country. And, people are going to be living with people who are Republicans and Democrats and all different colors and figuring out how to, reestablish the bonds of community in our country that are being, destroyed right now. We need to focus a lot right now at this point in our history in self-healing.
Yep.
And we need to recover a lot of these kids who are being lost.
Where are we on billionaires? Because, I was reading yesterday, every now and then I need to sort of get into the wormhole of Bill Gates's new venture. And I was reading about the appeal he's putting on Costco apples. He's covering Costco apples with some schmegma condoms for apples. I don't know if he's just jealous that he didn't make Apple the software company. Now he needs to buy every last apple he bought.
I don't know much about Appeal, which is the name of it, but I don't eat those apples because, why would you if you can help it? But it extends their shelf life to like a month or something.
And then he bought Bragg's, which is the apple cider vinegar, which is a whole, sort of medicine a lot of people would take if they don't want to take Robitussin or NyQuil or all these other things. And he puts Appeal apples in that now. So it's a full-time job just to keep track of, what this guy's up to, and then owning the, potatoes for McDonald's. There's no way potatoes aren't that delicious. There's something up with these fries. Like, he owns the.
I thought J.R. Simplot.
Can we look that up, Pat? Because I think he owns the farmland for McDonald's potatoes.
I bet you he still buys the potatoes from J.R. Simplot.
Red River Trust, an entity associated with Gates, bought the acreage located in the northern Red River Valley from 3 Campbell brothers. According to Spudman, Gates now owns 14,000 acres of farmland Columbia Bays in Washington State, where potatoes are grown to eventually become McDonald's French fries. So he's just on that French fry trip. Wild. Wild to me.
Yeah.
Like I go back and forth, like, on Elon Musk. He's what?
He's the biggest owner of McDonald's. He's the biggest owner of Coca-Cola. He owns he's the biggest owner of Caterpillar.
Well, Caterpillar is the trucks that farm the land. Yeah, it's like John Deere's competitor. Canadian National Railway. He owns railways?
Well, that he got from Warren Buffett, I think.
So that we can't leave if we need to because of all the GMO fries? He's going to keep us in if his GMO mosquitoes start attacking us. There's no way to get to Canada. I mean, this guy's wild. I don't want to put on the tinfoil hat and talk about the chemtrails and mosquitoes, but is there a role, if any, in terms of regulating not just corporations, but these billionaires that just seem to be...
Well, I don't know. I mean, Gates...
Gates, if you're single, I'm available, but also we need to handle you.
You think it would be worth it even for $50 billion?
Well, I would justify it as I'm going to get on the inside and dismantle this monster. I'll jump on this grenade. I'm going to go in there, make them fall in love with me, and I'm going to stop appeal. I'm going to stop.
You shouldn't have told your plan on that.
I know, stupid. Or should I have? Right? Do you think there's a certain amount of money that just corrupts the brain? Is this addiction gone wild?
I don't know. I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking about Gates because I wrote a book about him.
Yes.
But and there's patterns to his strategy. He calls it philanthrocapitalism, which is that I'll tell you, he did this with Common Core curriculum where everybody gets, is taught kind of to learn Microsoft programming when they're is trained in doing that. So when they leave school, when they're in school, that they become customers. He did this with the Green Revolution in Africa, which he financed. He and the Rockefeller Foundation. And the Green Revolution was about converting Africans away from traditional like sorghum and beans and plantains and the sort of sustainable agriculture that they had developed over 20,000 generations, and switching them to GMO corn. And he owns the GMO corn because he owns a big chunk of Monsanto, and then Cargill, which he brought in to do the supply chain. And the deal that they make with Africa is that if you switch to global commodities, then we will not only supply you the fertilizer, we'll supply you the pesticides, and then we will buy the commodity at the end of the season, and we will use it in our products for McDonald's, for Kraft. He also owns Kraft, and Coca-Cola, the corn syrup and the Coca-Cola, etc. So that was kind of with the Green Revolution. And now, as a result of that, there are 30 million additional Africans who are living on the edge of starvation. And during the COVID, we shut down. So now the people in Africa, we stopped importing all their corn. We stopped importing the thing, so all the promises of globalization that we made to the African people back in 1996, when Clinton was president and Gates was driving the foreign policy, those promises all got broken because now that corn was left in heaps on the docks and it wasn't being shipped. And there were 10,000 African children dying a month of starvation. The lockdowns really destroyed that whole illusion of globalization. But, it was a money-making enterprise for Gates. And the vaccines are the same thing. He gives the money, gets tax deductions for giving the money to the WHO. He gains control of the WHO. The WHO pays for finances the health ministries in virtually every country in Africa. So he can then say, as a condition of getting that money, this is what WHO does. As a condition to get that money, you have to show that you vaccinated a certain percentage of your population. Is the milestone, and the vaccines that they're buying are owned by companies that Gates owns. Oh, it's this system where, at the end, the punchline on almost all of his philanthropic projects are that he ends up making money. Oh, I don't look into his head and speculate about why he thinks the way that he does, but he did the same thing with Microsoft. Microsoft was, it was a monopoly. It's to control every aspect of vertically integrate and control every aspect of the domain of the landscapes, and be able to monetize philanthropy to make yourself richer.
It's the revenge of the nerds. Whatever girl rejected him in high school, it is on you to come back and sleep with him and close this loop. Whatever it is, it just terrifies me. I'm just going to jump around a little bit. When I think about sort of, the carcinogens in the water, I mean, you've been fighting this your entire career, pollutants in the water, microplastics, poisons. Does the government just have no interest in prevention because they're not on the hook for our healthcare?
Well, I think what the answer to that is that the reason that stuff is allowed because the food industry controls FDA. So it's a captive agency. It's like all the other issues that they're not, FDA was supposed to protect public health, but it's actually become a sock puppet for the industry that it's supposed to regulate. That's now, did you go to West Virginia to school?
So my grandfather, West Virginia, Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, he worked in coal. You did a documentary called The Last Mountain, which I sobbed the entire way through. I just, I know that your father had already sort of started.
My family was deeply linked to West Virginia because West Virginia primary, back in 1960, only a few states had primaries. And the West Virginia primary was critical because West Virginia had the lowest number of Catholics of any state. And it was notorious for its anti-Catholic prejudice. Before my uncle ran, Al Smith had run, who was the governor of New York. And he was very, very popular at first. And then people found out he was a Catholic, and it gave rise to kind of a re-emergence of the Ku Klux Klan in the country, and nativist bigotry, and it killed his presidency. So there was kind of let's say, a belief, a consensus that a Catholic could never run for president of the United States. So when my uncle ran during the primaries in 1960, he had to prove that a Catholic could overcome that prejudice. And the place that he had to do that was West Virginia. So, everybody agreed if he run West Virginia, that was, that showed that he could get votes from places that were traditionally anti-Catholic. So my whole family, my mother and father, disappeared into West Virginia when I was, 6 years old.
Whoa.
And there were, members of my family shook the hands of literally everybody in West Virginia during that election. And they put a huge effort into the state. And then they won. And that was a turning point in the campaign. And then the other thing that happened is my uncle, on a last minute impulse, he had been invited to speak to I think it was called the Protestant or the Evangelical Ministers Association in Dallas. And he gave this famous speech. He went down there and he gave this famous speech that they didn't ask me, my religion when they sent me to war in the Pacific. They didn't ask my brother's religion before he died for our country because his brother Joe had died during the war. And he gave really this extraordinary, I'd say, tour de force about the importance of religious freedom in America, and he got a standing ovation at the end, and that kind of put the issue behind him.
Well, I mean, there's also a complimentary documentary called Hillbilly to yours about what happened, with Trump and Hillary. Hillary said, we got to get rid of coal. She said, and quote, "You guys did the best you could to keep the lights on, but it's time to move to clean energy." And by keep the best you could, they died. They went down there. They never came back. They died. And then Trump put on a hard hat and he went to Appalachia. So, it's such an overlooked area. It's something that is so close to my heart. Also, for people to look at West Virginia as this backward area. It was the first woke state. They said no to slavery. John Brown said, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah, they were anti-slavery.
And now it's thought of as this backward area, we've got this like third world country right in the center. We're going to spend all this money on Ukraine. Meanwhile, why aren't we rehabilitating West Virginia? Like, in terms of clean energy, nuclear energy, all these new energies, like what can we do in order to heal the traumatic legacy of coal while making sure coal miners are still taken care of, still have jobs, but also transitioning to something that's not going to create such incredible pollution, toxic air. I mean, I grew up drinking poison West Virginia water, so it probably explains a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at that film, my sister also did a film. I think it was nominated for an Academy Award. My baby sister, called American Hollow, and it's about it's about life in West Virginia. But and Cheryl went to school in West Virginia.
I didn't know that. Oh, that's so cool.
She went to the University of West Virginia for a while.
That's why she's America's sweetheart.
Yep.
That state just means so much to me, and it's so forgotten. And I just feel like politicians tend to not go there, and it really breaks my heart.
Yeah, I mean, in the strip mine, one of the things that strip mining did, which is now called mountaintop removal mining, is it really kind of broke the UMW, the United Mine Workers in West Virginia, because the strip industry was not unionized, and they don't even advertise for jobs in West Virginia. They go down to Myrtle Beach. They go down to states that are very, very anti-union to get workers. And it used to be that if you take mine from under the ground, it's very labor intensive. So when my dad was fighting strip mining in West Virginia back in the 60s, there was 112,000 unionized miners in the state. Today, I think there's only 11,000 miners, and they're taking a lot more coal out of West Virginia, but they're doing it very, very now capital intensive. They use these giant machines called drag lines that are 22 stories high. I've literally flown under one in a Piper Cub. They use hundreds of tons of ammonium nitrate explosives. In West Virginia, they detonate the equivalent of a Hiroshima nuclear bomb every week to blow the tops off the mountains to get at the coal seams beneath. And then they take all the rubble and they plow it into the river valley. And, they've buried 2,200 miles of rivers and streams, all illegal. But they get away with it because how the government is in West Virginia. It's owned by the coal industry.
Correct. They pay for schools. They pay for the parades. They send food to your house, and one of the most despicable things they did, I can speak for, I know Sinclair Oil, is they would pay their workers in vouchers to the Sinclair store so that they couldn't build wealth.
That's an old scam. And company store.
And something maybe I'll text Cheryl about that we could work on together, because I know she obviously is making movies now and getting sort of more behind the camera and producing. I was like, why aren't we shooting movies in West Virginia? It looks like Narnia. We could shoot Lord of the Rings there. We could shoot all these incredible, why doesn't, what is it, Game of Thrones shoot there? I mean, it looks like New Zealand, like let's put money back into our small towns. Like what a great way to do it. So I'm emailing with the tourism industry. I'm like trying to figure the local film industry, West Virginia. One of them that runs tourism is a Hatfield, and the one that runs films in McCoy, and they won't talk.
Well, I lived in Alabama for almost 2 years. I lived in a little town in Lowndes County called Hayneville. It was 22 miles south of Montgomery, and the guy I lived with was a guy called Sweet Pea Russell. He was a rodeo cowboy, and he was driving home one night, and he'd been drinking, and he went past the exit. He must have blacked out or passed out in the car. He hit the back of a U-Haul trailer and knocked it over the front of the car. And it was a family from West Virginia that was moving to Florida. and they had all their worldly possessions in that, and they were in a station wagon. And luckily, he hit this U-Haul, and it cushioned the blows. So they didn't, nobody got hurt, thank God. But I went there the next day to help them clean up the mess because all of their possessions were all over the highway. And we came on a high school yearbook, and every single person in it was either called Hatfield or McCoy. So
obsessed.
Yeah, the same thing.
Totally obsessed.
But you're talking about the landscapes in Appalachia, and it's interesting because it's the richest ecosystems in North America. And the reason for that is during the Pleistocene Ice Age, which was 20,000 years ago, there were 2 miles of ice over where I lived in New York, over the Hudson Valley. And the rest of North America became a tundra. So there were no trees left. And the only place that the American forest survived was in Appalachia. And then when the ice withdrew, North America was reseeded from those Appalachian forests. So the typical forest in this country, on the East Coast forest, like in Vermont or Georgia, has 3 dominant tree species. In Appalachia, there is 80 because just the richness of that ecosystem. So it's the mother ecosystem of all of North America. It's the richest, more species per cubic meter than any other place in North America. And it's really a crime that we're cutting it all down. We've cut down these coal companies. Peabody, Consul, Massey have cut down 1.4 million acres. The 500 biggest mountains of West Virginia are gone. They flattened an area larger than the state of Delaware, 1.4 million acres. And it's a sterilized ecosystem after that. So, and then they buried all the rivers. It's really, if Americans knew, this is the Purple Mountains Majesty. These are the landscapes where Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett roam. So much of our culture, bluegrass music, NASCAR racing, all of these, these iconic parts of American culture.
Racial equality.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I'm talking about this area, it makes me hopeful. It, makes my heart expand. It does remind me of one thing that last time I visited someone that was horribly injured and his whole family was injured from coal, said something that broke my heart. He said, if they hadn't taken all the coal by now, we'd probably have diamond mines. Like they're taking these, literal natural resources.
Well, my father used to say about West Virginia, it's the richest state in the country. But it has the poorest population. It competes with Mississippi for having the poorest population every year. They go back and forth, but and it's because the mines. I mean, Massey Coal is not locally owned. Peabody and Consul are not. They're all owned by Wall Street. The coal is being strip mined from the people, and all that. Those coal fields were purchased by hustlers who went in there and what they call scalawags and carpetbaggers who went into the state after the Civil War, and they would pay landowners for the subsurface rights to their property. And if you're a poor landowner who's starving, and they say to you, somebody says to you, there's coal under here, and one day somebody may mine it, we want to own, it will pay you money, that right in the future, and you think it's going to be a tunnel mine that's not going to really disturb your use and enjoyment of your property. You take the money. So it was all sold, it was all bought, and then it was consolidated and sold to these really 3 giant companies. And then they came in and said, well, actually, now we're going to actually blow your farm up to get at the coal. And people would say, you can't do that. And they'd go to the West Virginia Supreme Court, which is owned by the coal industry.
That's right.
And the coal industry said, yeah, if you got to get at the coal, you can blow up the farm now.
Even, I want to say 5-6 years ago, Elon Musk tried to bring in a Tesla factory with union labor, and they chased him out. He was like, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't even let him go in.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels so hopeless sometimes, but they do show up and vote. And one thing I will say is we proudly say the word redneck here, because of course that dates back to the Battle of Blair Mountain, where the labor uprising, where everyone had a red handkerchief, so every now and then in this sort of moment where no one's allowed to say anything and these words, you say this and that, I say I'm proudly white trash and hillbilly and a redneck. And people are like, you can't say redneck. I'm like, you think you made up some other term for it, but actually in West Virginia, it means you're a hero.
And the Battle of Blair Mountain was a battle. It was the only time in American history when U.S. Air Force bombers have been deployed against American citizens inside America. And there was 20,000 union protesters on Blair Mountain who were trying to get decent wages. And the government, the coal company, which owned the United States government at that time, got them to deploy the United States Air Force in its earliest years. One of the first actions of the United States Air Force was bombing and strafing striking miners in West Virginia. Oh, that's real, corporate capture.
Dark Water, that Mark Ruffalo movie. It was about, after coal, then came in DuPont. Then I have umbrella insurance specifically so I can talk about DuPont. Because I had my business manager, because I'm always like, DuPont spilling chemicals in West Virginia. He's like, can you please take that down? And then it's just over and over again, and the chemical spills, and now the opioid crisis. It always just seems to go straight for Appalachia every time.
Yeah, so that movie was made about my case, which was that, suing DuPont on PFOAs, which are a flame retardant, and they called C8 at the time, and they were
Teflon. Is that?
It's in Teflon, yes, and that's why Teflon, was making people sick, because when Teflon starts, you should never use a Teflon coated pan, because if it starts to smoke when it heats up, it volatilizes the PFOAs, and then you inhale it, and it's making people very, very sick. But it also was in the water, and it poisoned 10,000 people in that part of Ohio and West Virginia. And we sued them, and we ended up winning the 3 lawsuits and settling for the 10,000 families there. I also brought a case against DuPont in West Virginia, and I did the closing argument in the case. And it was in Spelter, West Virginia, where DuPont was running a zinc smelter and had poisoned the entire town, knew they were all poisoned. There was actually a memo in the case where they said, we need to tell these people, here's a press release. And then DuPont met and said, let's not tell them. And because the people were saying, the executives in the company say, we need to tell them, so they stopped drinking their water because we're poisoning them all. And here is a model press release that we're going to use to inform the town. And then the executives of DuPont said, it's better not to tell them. And they let them drink it for another 20 years. And when you went around that town, you could look at people and just say, something's wrong here.
There were tour guides that were getting thyroid cancer of the New River. And, the people that would canoe, swim in the river. I mean, a lot of people that I went to school with, their kids had thyroid cancer. I mean, it's beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
Do you think part of the reason they were able to get away with that is because it was a lot of Italians, it was a lot of Scotch-Irish, they looked at them as immigrant labor at the time? Or I'm trying to get away.
I mean, I don't know how much of that there was, but probably.
Yeah.
They were, I think a lot of them were World War I veterans who had gone. I mean, West Virginia has more Medal of Honor winners, I think, than any other state. Despite the small population, West Virginia and Puerto Rico, I think, are the highest concentration of Medal of Honor winners. And there was this Scotch-Irish population that was, very, very, had fought in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And it became kind of a tradition to be, it's part of this a Scotch-Irish tradition to go into the military. And
there's a great book called Born Fighting about that.
Jim Webb.
Yeah, that's my ancestry. Yeah. So whenever somebody's like, why do you always have to be so contrary? I'm like, this is just my ancestry. I don't know what to tell you. I just,
it's like the definition of a well-balanced Irishman is having a chip on both shoulders. But Jim Webb's, Jim Webb was a United States senator. I think he had 7 generations of awarded war heroes in his family. His son, who is a Marine in Iraq, is running Veterans Affairs for my campaign.
Wow. That's so cool. I'm letting you go because I know you have a million things. One thing I have not, by the way, I love your podcast.
Thank you.
I didn't want to ask you any questions you've already answered on there, but I cannot recommend it enough. It's sometimes just 30-minute bites, total game changer. Obviously, you've done some amazing podcasts with Rogan and Lex, etc. One thing I haven't heard, though, is how you proposed to Cheryl.
When I proposed to Cheryl, first of all, I went and asked permission of Larry.
Right,
and that was, but I was in Florida, and we were in a sort of a mangrove. We were on the banks of the St. Johns River, and we were in kind of all of these southern oaks with the Spanish moss coming off of it. We were with her nieces and nephews and her daughter. And they asked me if I was going to marry Cheryl, and I'd already made up my mind. I said, yeah, do you want to see me propose to her? And they said, yeah. And so I got down on my knees. And
no ring, anything. Just
they took a picture of it, which is, I didn't have a ring on me at that point.
So it was real love.
One.
It was real love.
Yeah.
Okay. We get it. You have real love. Thank you so much for coming by. I don't want to keep you. I don't want to be selfish with your time, but I'm just such a big fan of yours, and I hope I didn't.
I'm a huge fan of yours.
I hope I didn't make you repeat too much. Oh, let me just tell you one more thing.
It was mainly new stuff, so that's really an accomplishment.
I also wrote my senior honors thesis on the postmodern implications of Oliver Stone's JFK. So this day was coming regardless.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to come back and talk about that
another
stuff.
time. Yeah, but that has been a very long obsession of mine for, my dad was onto this way before. Also played Harvard football, my dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have lots of weird
What year?
eccentric things. Oh, God, he would be 77 right now.
Okay, so he was 10 years younger than my dad.
Yeah, he got asked to leave because he would fight.
Fighting?
He was born fighting.
That's funny.
That's our thing.
Oh, anyway, next time I come back, maybe you'll have some family photos.
Yes, we'll have to.
In this house.
The fact that he came and he's like, you have no photos of anyone in this house. He's like, is this a stage house? like Tom Cruise has that Scientology house. It's a fake house.
Cartoons and horses.
It's so sad. Yeah, I know. I've got horses. I've got.
Well, this room, the people who are watching this room actually has a lot of character and imprint on it, but the rest of the house could be.
It's kind of austere. I wanted to be very simple, very calming, and then here is just the total. This is like the inside of my brain, just complete chaos, and stuff that fans sent, and just all the rigmarole. So thank you for coming by. I end these awkwardly, and as always, don't ride elephants. I always end saying, "Remember when Bob Barker said spay and neuter your pets?" At the end. Remember when he would say that at the end of every Price is Right? Spay and neuter your pets. It made a really big difference in awareness about it. So I was like, let me pick one thing to say. And so I say, don't ride elephants.
Okay.
Yeah. So don't do that today. Thank you.
It's too late for me.